Welcome back to the Annie Frey Show. We appreciate you being with us this afternoon. I want to get directly to our guest. Gregg Jarrett joins us once again, Fox News legal analyst, former defense attorney and law professor. His latest book, The Constitution and Other Patriotic Documents. Greg, I saw that on a bookshelf this weekend at a store I was at, and I smiled. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you here.
You're supposed to buy it, not just smile.
I have a copy of it, and I make sure that it lives somewhere near my husband, who teaches middle school history, and my son, who I want to make sure he understands civics by the time he graduates high school.
Good idea. Excellent.
So let's talk a little bit about constitutionality of things here. Gregg Jarrett with us right now. I'm talking about these activist judges. Of course, we hear that that Congress is going to be having hearings about this week. Judge Boasberg and this Venezuelan flight of immigrants, all of these things leading up to him making this action saying, nope, you got to ground them all. Is this an activist judge? Is that a real thing?
Oh, I think it absolutely is. I mean, you look at his past decisions that have been blatantly hostile towards Donald Trump. And I think the inexorable conclusion is that this is a guy who is allowing his own political views and personal animus to dictate his legal decisions instead of the law itself. And, you know, what I find so troubling about his restraining order on these Trump deportations is that he is absolutely ignoring the United States Supreme Court, which reviewed the use of the Alien Enemies Act. In the 20th century, 3 different presidents, all Democrats, invoked it. 2 of them after wars had ended, so it doesn't have to be a declared war. And the High Court said not only is the act constitutional and the law of the land, it is not, said the justices, subject to judicial review by anyone. When a president invokes it, no judge, no court can intervene. Not even the Supreme Court, because it is an exclusive power that Congress vested in the president that is a purely political decision based on national security and foreign policy. And the thing is this, Boasberg is duty-bound as a lower court judge to follow the ruling of the higher Supreme Court, which said essentially, no judge can second-guess the president when he invokes the Alien Enemies Act. Yet Boasberg is brazenly defying and ignoring the U.S. Supreme Court.
So what is the supervisory process here? Of course, Congress is going to be having hearings on this right now. Who does Judge Boasberg answer to?
Well, Boasberg ultimately answers to the chief of the executive branch, which is the president, because it's a presidential appointment for life. But under the separation of powers, of course, he doesn't. He is there to review within his jurisdictional limits, the law and the Constitution. But what's been going on here with all of these injunctions filed by Democrats and liberal groups against Trump, trying to stop his agenda, it's another form of lawfare. What they've been doing is they have been running to the nearest favorable venue and preferable judges, where the result they know is preordained in their favor and against Trump. It is known as judge shopping. It is completely unethical, and, it needs to be made illegal. Now, only Congress can do that, and in point of fact, Senator Josh Hawley is introducing a bill to place limits on these judges, because the one common denominator is that these injunctions were ordered against Trump by Democrat-appointed judges. And for many of them, they're exceeding their authority and they're contorting the law to do it. They're usurping the power of the presidency. They're issuing a ridiculous number of what are known as universal injunctions that involve the entirety of the United States, way beyond their limited district authority. And, as I say, it's another form of lawfare being waged against Trump. They're trying to stop him yet again by weaponizing the law, this time with favorable judges. And if Congress doesn't act, the Supreme Court, I think, needs to step in and put a halt to it.
Mm. What do you say to the people who say about this Alien Enemies Act that it explicitly says this is only to be used in a time of war? You gave a couple of examples where that wasn't the case, but that seems to be a common pushback against the implementation of it. It says time of war, end all, be all. That's what the words say.
Yeah, read the law. The law gives options. And one of the options is, yes, a declared war. But then it says, or a predatory incursion. Now, when Trump issued his order to deport these murderous gang members that, have invaded the United States, he used the language of the act, a predatory incursion. And then he went on to describe what that is and what it means. And frankly, the meaning fits like a glove the Tren de Aragua terrorist group. They're a designated terrorist organization by our government, by the president. And, these are gang members who have committed murder and rape, extortion, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, all forms of crimes, and they are doing it in concert in many ways and at the behest of the rogue regime of Maduro in Venezuela. And so there's more than enough compelling evidence that they are indeed guilty of a predatory incursion, and that invokes the Alien Enemies Act.
Well, that's pretty clear. You've made that very clear. So Gregg Jarrett speaking with us right now. We're talking about the activist judges that exist right now. At least in the news media headlines, you see activist judges, a phrase used quite a bit. I'm trying to think and trying to be, open-minded as a conservative-minded person myself. Does the right get accused of doing this type of judge shopping that you were referring to? Is there there's a Republican president in, so now the Democrats are doing this. Is there a converse that is successfully implemented?
Well, I don't deny that there have been cases of forum shopping by Republicans and Democrats both. But the moment that Trump was sworn in, it was taken to an all-new high level of abuse by Democrats and liberal groups. And it is so obvious and so over the top. For example, in the Boasberg case, if you look at the schedule that the court had set forth of judges who would handle emergency weekend petitions, it was Judge Contreras, Rodolfo Contreras, who was supposed to receive that weekend any emergency petitions. It was March 15th, Saturday. Well, who got the case? Not Contreras, but Boasberg. They went to Boasberg. Boasberg wanted it, and that's how it landed in his lap. As I say, everybody knew, the plaintiffs and the court, that Boasberg would rule immediately against Trump. And look, there are other troubling aspects of what he did. First of all, he issues a temporary restraining order without bothering to allow the government to even be there physically to respond, to be heard. And, not only that, but he's not allowed to issue a TRO under the Alien Enemies Act. The law says the exclusive recourse is a habeas corpus petition. Well, the judge ignored that and issued a temporary restraining order. On top of it, he doesn't even have jurisdiction. There were 5 plaintiffs in the case. They were all being held in Texas. So who has jurisdiction? Texas does, not a Washington, D.C. judge. And then ordering flights returned midair. No judge has the power and authority to do that. Once an airplane leaves U.S. soil and departs U.S. airspace, that's it. No judge can tell it to turn around. But this judge did, because he's enamored by his own outsized power, and he has appointed himself a super president who can countermand our real president of the United States.
Well, Gregg Jarrett, last question before we let you go. We're grateful for your time this afternoon. They might be different answers, but the likelihood of how this is going to play out versus the actual possibilities of how to reprimand an activist judge or how to remedy the situation?
Well, it's interesting because Boasberg set a court hearing for this week, but today the higher court of appeals is conducting a hearing to decide whether to toss out Boasberg's temporary restraining order and the deportation. So, for right now, this minute, Boasberg doesn't have jurisdiction. The appellate court does. Now, granted, that is not a terribly friendly court to President Trump, so I think it's an uphill battle for them. But we'll wait and see what happens. But I guarantee you that it will then be taken up on appeal by the Trump administration, and ultimately it may find its way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, we will follow it all the way. And Gregg Jarrett, we're always very appreciative of your expert legal analysis. Thanks for being with us again this afternoon.
Good to be with you, Annie. Take care.
Take care. Goodbye.